For many years now I have been addicted to Bloodborne, and like an addict I keep coming back, shooting blood vials into my veins. Hell, my little baby milk snake is named Murgo after this guy, though I promise I'm not going to commit infanticide. The point being is I am a massive fan of Bloodborne and the rich story it possesses. Over quite a long period of time I have been playing what is known as Blood Level 4. If you don't know what Blood Level 4, also known as BL4 is, it is a challenge that exists in all of fromsoftwares games, where the player plays at level 1. Or in Bloodborne's case, level 4, as that's simply the lowest you can go level-wise. I think there's a really big stigma of level 1 runs being this really hard and difficult challenge that can only be done by the most skilled and talented players. Let me tell you, I have nearly 500 hours in Bloodborne and I am shit. I am terrible at these games. As of recording this video, I've spent 63 hours inside of Blood Level 4. I can confidently say that in my opinion, Blood Level 4 is the optimal way to play Bloodborne. If you'd told me that when I first started playing fromsoftwares games quite a few years back, I probably would have called you bloody crazy, and I agree. It sounds crazy saying that playing something extremely hard like level 1 is the best experience, but it's completely true. And I hope by the end of the video you, at least on some basic level, understand why I believe Blood Level 4 is the optimal way to play Bloodborne. Combat and exploration are at the very centre of all of fromsoftwares games, and Bloodborne is definitely no exception. Bloodborne is hailed as having some of the best combat fromsoftware has ever made, and I'm definitely inclined to agree. These two elements, which are already incredibly good inside of base game Bloodborne, are extremely enhanced when you go into Bloodborne at Blood Level 4. Starting off with combat, damage is a lot lower. To show you the difference between damage output on a normal playthrough versus Blood Level 4, I'm putting on screen right now my main character, which is very much over-leveled, with a plus 10 sword cleaver and no blood gems. I've also put the same weapon, plus 10 sword cleaver with no blood gems, on my Blood Level 4, and I will show you the damage comparisons. The damage comparisons don't seem like much, but when you're in a massive boss fight, and Ludwig, for example, has around 33,000 HP, you really feel it, like really feel it. This might seem like a negative, but in my eyes this is actually a positive. You get to experience boss fights for what they are, fully, completely. There's something that I haven't been able to capture, or I don't have the footage of, but there's this little glitch that happens in Ludwig's boss fight, where you literally jump on top of his head and you go flying. I've had this happen about 5 times, and it is so funny, and it's honestly my favourite glitch inside of Bloodborne. But if I hadn't spent so much time doing this Blood Level 4 and fighting Ludwig, I would never have found this out, or at least I hadn't up to this point. The point being, actually experiencing Blood Level 4 for what it is exposes you to a deeper level of Bloodborne. And that goes not only for combat, but also exploration. Exploration is heavily changed when you go into Blood Level 4. This is due to the fact that everything is a lot harder, meaning you need to take a lot more time to slowly and methodically push through an area. This slow and methodical approach really benefits Bloodborne in a way I really wouldn't have expected when I first started. There's so many little tiny details scattered all throughout Yharnam, and at Blood Level 4, considering how slow you're going, it leaves you open to experience stuff that you probably wouldn't have experienced before. Of course, a lot of people do methodically go through the Souls games. I know I have, even outside of Blood Level 4, when I've just wanted to experience the world again, and that is great, but I feel like there's a different experience doing that exploration at level 1, or at least base level. This goes for not just Bloodborne, but all of fromsoftwares games. I've beaten Dark Souls 3 at level 1, and I'm at Solar Cinder on my second playthrough of that. I've played Dark Souls 1 level 1, and I've just passed Ornstein and Smo. The reason I'm telling you this is to tell you that this whole theme of better exploration at base level continues to all of the games, and honestly, it's got to a point where it sort of feels intentional. Either that or it's a happy accident, a very bloody happy accident. The whole topic of better experiences at level 1 isn't just related to exploration. Combat in the other games is also a lot better. Just for a moment, I want to go back to combat. Bosses are a really important part of Bloodborne and FromSoftware's games as a whole. And the fact that you do less damage makes some bosses which have a really low health pool really much longer than they are normally. There's a lot of bosses inside of FromSoftware's games who suffer heavily from a really small health pool, really interesting and unique bosses which you just mow through. But at level 1, that isn't the case. A really great example is Murgo's Wet Nurse. Murgo's Wet Nurse in a normal playthrough is the very last boss before you enter the final stage of Bloodborne. For me, and what I've read online, a lot of people felt a bit disappointed by Murgo's Wet Nurse. Not because it's a bad boss by any sense of the means, but because it was a lot easier than what you'd expect from Murgo's Wet Nurse. The same Murgo who you've heard cry all throughout Bloodborne. But the full potential of this boss is realised inside of Blood Level 4. The fact that you do so much less damage leads to the boss being so much longer, and although it's a big clunky enemy and you'd sort of expect it to not be like a dance, it really is like a dance. I feel like in Bloodborne a lot of enemies that are big suffer from the fact stick by its arsehole and hit and slash it, but there feels to be a lot more to Murgo's Wet Nurse than just that. Of course there is still elements of that, but at Blood Level 4 the potential is fully unlocked and I'm all for it. This goes for not just Murgo's Wet Nurse, but most of the other bosses in Bloodborne that are usually not forgettable, that's the wrong word, but are a lot easier than you might have hoped. Just a little TLDR for you though as well. Mikolash is still a bloody arsehole. Most of you probably remember playing Bloodborne for the first time. I certainly do. I remember first booting it up after my dad telling me stories of how he'd been stuck on the Yharnam enemies at the start for a week and a half and he gave up. That was my first introduction to Bloodborne, and as soon as you enter Central Yharnam, you're thrown into literal hell. And it's an experience that is hard to shake, an experience that sticks with its players, for at least in my case, years after first experiencing it. The beauty of Blood Level 4 lies in the fact that you experience this again. You might be thinking that's absolutely mental. How the bloody hell can you experience the first time playing again? Well, it has all to do with the difficulty. Blood Level 4 is bloody rock solid. It is painfully hard, but in the same sense that it was hard when you first started playing these games. As time goes on and you play more and more of FromSoftware's games, at least for me, combat becomes a lot easier. I remember the times where you used to sit in front of a screen for hours just playing Bloodborne or any of FromSoftware games normally until you finally beat the boss. Whippy, hooray! But now, when I'm doing that, it's a lot easier and the games lose a bit of that challenge. But at Blood Level 4 and at Level 1, you are thrown back into that helplessness, that hopelessness that is so intrinsic to FromSoftware's games. A good example of this outside of Blood Level 4 and Level 1 would be Sekiro. The reason why so many FromSoftware fans struggled with Sekiro was because of how different it was. The same could be said for Blood Level 4. FromSoftware's games, at its core, is patterns and movement. Once you've got the patterns down, it becomes a lot easier. But at Blood Level 4 and at Level 1 in different Souls games, everything becomes a lot harder. Your HP, which we haven't really covered much, is incredibly low, making most bosses one-shot you. This leads to increased risk. This leads to more time spent in the boss fight. Not to mention the less damage that you're doing, so again, more time in the boss fights. This leads to a completely new experience which rocked my world when I first played them, because you don't think you're ever going to capture that magic, that sort of lightning in a bottle feeling when you first play FromSoftware's games. But contrary to that preconception that I would never feel that again, I was completely wrong, and I would feel that again with Blood Level 4 and Soul Level 1 runs. They are a truly unique experience which brings back the spark that you first have when you first play these games. I also want to mention that weapon variety is very much limited at Blood Level 4. This is the only thing that I find a bit sad, is the fact that you can literally only use 3 right-handed weapons, that being the saw cleaver, the threaded cane and the axe, all of which are starting weapons. Saw cleaver has always been my personal pick because I love the saw cleaver. I use it sometimes even when I'm not doing Blood Level 4. It's also just got the best damage out of the weapons available, not to mention the transform technique is just great for DPS, but all the other weapons are also usable. If you prefer those weapons, go for them. That's what I love about Bloodborne, is the fact that all weapons are usable. There's not necessarily a best weapon, just whatever weapon you feel you are best with. There are left-handed weapons, but those are very much limited as well. I think you can use the spray cans, but I've never dabbled into that. I use the hunter torch because that is just the best weapon you can use in the left hand, at least for myself. Guns don't do much damage, and ripostes are actually terrible because they scale off skill. Weapon variety is quite literally the only issue I have with Blood Level 4. I really wish I could use the Beast Cutter at Blood Level 4, but the highest you can do is Blood Level 6 for Beast Cutter, which is a shame, but it's only a little nitpicky thing, and it's really not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. If the 3 available weapons were terrible, then that would be a completely different story, but the 3 available are really unique and, in their own right, really, really cool. Whether you decide to go and play Blood Level 4 or not is completely up to you, but I hope from watching this video you understand why I believe Blood Level 4 is the best way to play Bloodborne. If you do go and play Blood Level 4, then please go and let me know down below or in our Discord server, which will be in the top of the pinned comment and the top of the description. I'd love to hear how it goes because, honestly, Blood Level 4 changed Bloodborne for me forever. I find it hard to play normal Bloodborne now. I just have to play Blood Level 4 because Blood Level 4, for me at least, is so much more enjoyable than just base Bloodborne. Hopefully, if you do end up playing Blood Level 4, you'll understand what I'm talking about because it's just something you've really got to experience. Sadly everyone, that is the end of the video. I really do hope you enjoyed this one. I know I ramble a lot at the end of my videos, so I'm going to try and not do that today. I really do hope you have a great rest of your day, and may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye everyone, and don't you dare go hollow.